Welcome back. I originally didn't plan to release this video so long after the last one, but things in life are ever evolving. If you didn't watch part 1, I recommend that you do, but it's not necessary because these characters scale far above them to the point where they're not even worth mentioning in some cases. So for a quick recap, in part 1, I went over base Sonic and characters that are on par with him. This video will be going over Super Sonic and the few Archie characters that are actually more powerful than him. However, for scaling purposes, I'll be starting with characters that are weaker, just so we can get a better idea of where he should scale, since they're stronger than base Sonic. The point of this video is to take an objective look at the power scaling of the Archie Sonic universe and its most powerful characters, answering the common arguments that you hear and if they're actually valid or if they're just blown out of context. Before we can get into the people that are above base Sonic, I want to discuss the potential upscaling for base Sonic characters that I didn't go over in the last video, as I placed them in building level when you could argue city. Essentially, in the Archie Sonic universe, there's a concept called robotization, which boosts the user's power. Sonic has gone through the process, and so has Knuckles. This Mecha Sonic, as he was dubbed, was able to survive several nukes while protecting Mecha Knuckles, though he was heavily damaged. I mention this because a version of Metal Sonic, named Shard, was directly compared to this power by Sonic. Shard was comparable to base Sonic, so there you go, a potential city-level meta for base Mobians. From there, I would like to discuss the wizard, Nagas. Now, he's got magical power that allows him to control the elements, he can react to Sonic, and even in the post-Super Genesis wave timeline, he was shown to be more powerful than Sonic. Now this is where the zone talk comes up again, because while he has a lot of power in the Zone of Silence, outside of it he's not that much to write home about. Not only that, he didn't create the Zone of Silence, he merely discovered it. And even if he had legitimately created it, it'd just be a pocket zone, which I went over in the last video, is not universe sized. Over him, we're going to put base Mammoth Mogul. This is him with just his magic, without any incredible amount of chaos power, but it can be him with a Chaos Emerald. He has superior magic to Nagas, and he was even called the most powerful character in the series at the time by Ian Flynn, which is a statement I will go over in depth later when we talk about Sonic's fate manipulation, a continuation again from the last video. We can move on to Sonic Man from here, who is the Robot Master version of Sonic. He was easily able to beat the other Robot Masters from Mega Man's universe, as well as be equal to the Robot Master version of Mega Man himself. His real standout feature though is speed. Unlike base Sonic, he was capable of moving in stop time with speed alone. This gives him infinite speed and will thus scale everyone above him to a similar level of speed. You could also view this as an outlier, but other super characters don't really have speed feats, so I'm completely fine just upscaling them from this Sonic Man feat. From there we can finally talk about the super forms, which the series is known for. These are characters who receive power directly from the Chaos Emeralds, be them super or more, and typically done by using 7. At the bottom we're going to have Turbo Tails. Now this may seem like a lowball, but super forms seem to be a static multiplier for the most part, and Tails never does anything super noteworthy in his super form. So despite the fact that he's stated to be the strongest and he's stated to be the chosen one, he never actually does anything to substantiate that claim, so I can't really justify putting him any higher. Above him though we have Hyper Knuckles, which is a transformation we don't see a ton in the Archie comics, but the first feat is the one you've heard the most about, which is him and Sonic fighting in the special zone, where they collide and destroy it. And it's also when the super forms are stated to have a 1000 times multiplier. This isn't completely concrete though, as sometimes they're stated to just be a 3 times boost, such as the case for Shadow, or a exponential boost, so I'm not even going to get into the multiplier, just going to talk about hardcore concrete feats. And Knuckles in this form has pretty decent chaos control. On top of this, going back to the zone busting feat, which I kind of debunked in the last video, while they do destroy a zone, again this is a pocket zone, not a universal zone, so it's not as powerful as a lot of people make it out to be. However, I do think that the incalculable speed statement fits, since that fits with the concept of infinite speed, since you couldn't calculate an infinite amount of speed. So I think I'm completely fine with using that part of the statement, but it's a pocket zone, so it's otherwise unquantifiable. Now we can finally move on to Super Sonic, Super Shadow, Super Scourge, and Super Silver. Just to get this out of the way, Silver is only here because he has the form in the guides. In some capacity, the fight with Solaris from 06 happened, but we never see it, so he's pretty featless. I'm just putting him here because of where I put him in the last video. Now, Super Sonic is a bit more novel, and there's a lot more to talk about because he has a couple of fights throughout the series. So his first fight is when he defeats Perfect Chaos, or at least I think it's the first one worth mentioning, because it's not really as impressive as it sounds. Because for one, I have to go over the fact that him being invulnerable is as overhyped as Superman, because while they can take most attacks from opponents that are on par with them do damage, and this is visibly shown several times, especially during the fight with Perfect Chaos, as he's hurt smashing through buildings, which is a very low showing, and he beats Chaos by shocking him with all the power of the city, and Sonic was going to use a shield to protect himself from that energy. Super Shadow doesn't appear much better initially, considering that he was concerned about a fall from orbit killing him. He had this concern twice, and while he did tank it, as I mentioned in the last video, the fact that he had these thoughts after losing to the Zora not only proves that the super forms aren't invincible, but on top of that, it has some very terrible anti-feats, since the Zora were later beaten by a mountain-busting robot from Eggman, to the point where they retreated. Now, am I going to say that the super forms in the Archie universe are below mountain level? Of course not. I just want to say that they're consistently multiversal is just a baseless claim, considering all these far below even planetary feats the super forms initially put out. However, I will mention that when Sonic is sent to space, he's accidentally split into two beings when he goes super using the red Chaos Emeralds. Don't ask. But this super form, which should be just as powerful as Sonic's regular super form, was going to destroy two moons for fun. And then we can add on to that the fact that Super Scourge claims he can spin dash Mobus and anti-Mobus in half, and is concerned that the fight between Sonic and Knuckles would destroy all of Mobus, but you can get that they are consistently planet level, at the very least. Sonic even warns Mega Man when he's about to fire a charged Mega Buster at Sigma that he should be careful not to split their planets apart, which, speaking of, we can discuss the Mega Man crossovers and the subject of if Sonic can warp reality, period, let alone on a multiversal scale. Now, first, Eggman is able to use the Chaos Emeralds to change history. However, it should be noted that he could only do it with limited control and he couldn't kill anyone, but this was, of course, just a single emerald. And Sonic does reverse this when he first enters his super state, but he has to stop Eggman from moving, and he also has to use the emeralds to rewind time. This is also the only time in the comics where we ever see Sonic rewind time, though we do briefly see Shadow stop time when he uses the Master Emerald. And he does this by calling on more Chaos power than he's ever done before directly from the Emerald. So it shouldn't be something Sonic can just casually do whenever. Next is the Super Genesis Wave, which is often touted as his best feat, and I will agree that it is very impressive. And I'm going to start calling it the SGW for short. Now, this is a wave of chaos energy which is going to rewrite the entire multiverse of Sonic and Mega Man's infinite multiverse. Similarly, the Super Genesis Wave was created by power of the Chaos Emeralds, but I should point out that this power was built up over time, and it's time that they had to buy so it couldn't be stopped. And once again, this isn't just a base Emerald feat, this is the power from the Chaos Force in 7 Chaos Emeralds gathered over time. Sonic and Mega Man being able to exert control over it is very impressive. But ultimately, they just took control of the SGW. They didn't create it. Further, Sonic had to concentrate and draw on this energy, which could be interrupted. In fact, it is interrupted by Eggman, which is why the post-Genesis timeline is the way it is. When he's interrupted, he has no control over the changes. The fact that the SGW was going to change the universe no matter what was already stated. All Sonic did was try to assert damage control in the situation. We can further expand on this by the next appearance of Mega Man and Sonic together, which is when they fight Sigma. Now, Sigma does state that he's going to draw power from infinite planets, but he does this by sending drones to absorb their energy, and he doesn't succeed. We see Sonic and his friends stop several of them, and we know heroes from their own universes also stopped some of Sigma's drones. He even says himself that he has more worlds to conquer when he goes to fight Sonic and Mega Man. His third form is his peak at the time, but that peak is not what he imagined it would be. On top of that, Sonic and Mega Man don't even hurt him while he's at full power. They're only able to do damage to him after he's betrayed by Eggman and Wily, and loses a good chunk of his power by being cut off from the generator. Before that, he was the one doing all of the hurting. This also supports my idea that they were just manipulating the SGW, because when they try to use the Chaos Force to fix their universes, in this instance, after they've beaten Sigma, they fail. The plot is actually resolved by a time loop preventing the events from even occurring to begin with. I won't deny that they managed to pull it off in the first crossover, but when you look at all of the evidence, it seems like a stretch to say they can just do it whenever they want, especially when the second time they try to do it in a smaller scale, since they're just trying to repair their base universe, they fail. But the biggest weakness of Super Sonic has to be his time limit, which does sort of vary, but I wouldn't give him more than 8 days. Now, above him, we're going to have Energex, which may sound like a stretch, but I hope you give you time to explain why I believe that he is one of the most powerful characters in the series and above Super Sonic. And there are multiple versions of this character, so I'm going to be including all of them in places where they belong based on the feats that they showcased. That being said, the first and weakest is Dimitri. Now, this isn't to say that he is a weak character. Obviously, I said he's stronger than Super Sonic. But as far as Energex go, he's not very impressive. He's able to teleport himself and Knuckles to the moon, as well as create an air pocket for them to breathe. He can then take them to the deepest depths of the ocean and the sky with ease. Along with that, he has telekinesis. He's also able to cause a being's very molecules to burst and be spread out across the planet, having done so to Knuckles. He can also manipulate the minds of those around him and create entire cities out of nowhere. He's also stronger than Knuckles without having to enhance his strength with chaos energy. And on par with him, we're going to put Mammoth Mogul, who stole his power. And he was able to fight Turbo Tails, Hyper Knuckles, and Super Sonic all at the same time. He did lose, but this is only because Tails siphoned off his power, and because he was cursed by the ancient walkers to lose. Which also brings up 2 points that we should mention right here. So this is why I'm going to be putting all forms of Energex over Super Sonic. Because Mammoth Mogul had Energex power, a little bit more, but mostly just Energex power, and he was able to fight 3 super characters, including Supersonic. But this is a good time to mention that people use Mogul telling Sonic that the fates convene to ensure his victory to say that Sonic has fate manipulation. Now this is the second half of something that I talked about in the previous video, and I think people don't understand what he's talking about, because what he's saying has nothing to do with Sonic. Mammoth Mogul was cursed to lose by the Ancient Walkers, thanks to the Chaos Emerald in his chest. He didn't know this. He just noticed the pattern of him continuously losing despite how much power he gained. So because of this, he didn't know that it no longer applied after he lost that Chaos Emerald. So he just falsely assumed that this was because of Sonic. This is something that's confirmed by the statement I mentioned earlier about him being the strongest in the series, as Ian Flynn notes that yes, the fact that he believes the fates convene against him is no longer the case after he loses the Chaos Emerald, but he doesn't know that despite being the strongest character in the series at the time. So Sonic definitely does not have fate manipulation, unless you have some other way to argue it, because the ways people do it with Eggman and this elephant just don't cut it. Now I'm going to follow him with Chaos Knuckles, which is the true form of Knuckles who was genetically engineered to have more access to the Chaos Force than other beings. Using these abilities, he was incredibly powerful and described as a living emerald. He was compared to Dimitri from the start, but he admitted that Knuckles had displayed more potential than he ever did. Knuckles was able to change the timeline, but he had to physically travel back to do so, and he was bound to it, so if he changed something, he could potentially erase himself from existence. He could also teleport others, create force fields, create blasts powerful enough to destroy meteorites, and he was able to undo the effects of the quantum beam, which in and of itself was an act Dimitri said made him stronger than Energex, hence his placement on the list. I will, however, note that I think people misconstrue how strong he is, because there is a statement that he had power to rival the Walkers, however he never displayed it. And I believe we can use the explanation of his death to get a proper answer, as they compare it to a supernova. So Knuckles had the power and potential to rival the Walkers with his use of the Chaos Force, but he never got a hang of those powers. And so when he released the power, it was stated that he released more energy than he had ever displayed before. So it's likely that he died hitting his peak rather than him being at his peak all of the time, which is why it's so notable when Mammoth Mogul absorbs this greater than ever energy he exerts. Adding on to the fact that Master Mogul also took advantage of the Chaos Force, but we'll be getting into that a bit later. Because right now we're going to discuss what happened to Knuckles after he had this power stolen, which is when he became Energex, which is actually one of my favorite moments in the comics, personally. It was directly stated that this would return him to his prior levels, perhaps even make him stronger, and he was easily able to defeat all of the Freedom Fighters, including Shadow and Sonic. Though this makes sense, given that he's above the super forms, and they were all in their base. He retains the same power of molecular manipulation that the original Energex had, being able to remove cybernetics and replace them with organic parts, as well as disintegrating an entire city. And when Eggman tried to drain his energy, he created a city-level explosion and escaped. Though this did leave him weakened to the point where he felt he needed to go to the Master Emerald in order to recharge. In this weakened state, he was able to fight Supersonic on pretty decent terms, though he did end up losing. But the fact that he was so close while weakened, I think, just bolsters the fact that he is that much stronger than Supersonic when at full power. Well, on the subject, I also think that Dark Energex, which is an alternate version of this Knuckles, would go here. He is from a different zone, which is why I'm not really going to talk about him too much. He's meant to be Knuckles if he becomes Energex a second time. He's able to conquer Mobus and defeat Supersonic, which makes sense considering how well he did while weakened. He's able to steal souls and turn them into soldiers. He also has the power to move Angel Island itself with ease, and he sinks continents for fun. But we finally come back to Master Mogul during his second stint with this amount of power, as he was able to become one of the strongest characters in the verse. Because when Knuckles unleashed all of that energy, like I said before, more than he ever had, and ended up dying, he was also able to use Knuckles' death to take advantage of the imbalance of the Chaos Force, because he came back to life, which left a hole for him to exploit. He was able to harness more power than any character before him. And with these powers, he's able to destroy entire zones, and in this context, I mean actual universe zone, reducing the infinite amount to a mere 2, and he was able to crush them in his bare hands. This is the main reason I have him above Energex, because he was able to manipulate an incredible amount of the Chaos Force, while Energex is only slightly above Chaos Knuckles. Mogul has the peak of Chaos Knuckles' abilities, and then some. I'd also like to mention that a lot of people scale him to Sonic, and I don't really know why, because for one, Master Mogul is massively amped here compared to the first time, which is the only time Sonic managed to fight him. And even in that instant, which is 2, Sonic couldn't beat Master Mogul by himself. He was losing a 3v1 fight, with help from characters that are comparable to him. He definitely has some of the best feats in the verse, like beating the Ancient Walkers to a near-death state. And as we draw near the end, we come to the most powerful character, the Chosen One Tails. Now this version is called Titan Tails, and he's incredibly unique. He was able to merge with every other version of himself and fight Master Mogul, draining him of his power, restoring the destroyed universes and returning to normal, as if nothing ever happened. We're close to wrapping up, but I want to briefly discuss Ultrasonic. This form only appears a few times and doesn't have a lot of lore surrounding it. It's achieved by thousands of rings, or a super emerald, and people rate it above the super form because in issue 71 he turned super then ultra using a super emerald, implying that it's superior. So you'd have to scale the physicals to super because it has no feats in that regard, other than being able to affect. But Sonic was able to do that by using the emerald, and he had to run a specific pattern, and it was only planetary in scale, so I wouldn't really focus on that feat very much at all. The only real powers it has is that it gives Sonic access to Ixis magic, so he can control the elements on a molecular scale. And he could create a portal to the Zone of Silence, though it used up the entire transformation's power. Personally, I'd say at best, this form would probably be a match for Energex, but I doubt he rose to the level of Master Mogul the second time in Titan Tales. Now, before we go, I have a few parting words. Namely, that naturally the conclusion I came to in this video is going to upset a lot of people, but this is my genuine take after having read the comics for myself. I heard the usual multiversal and immeasurable speed statements for years, but I can't agree with them given his performance from my reading. Personally, I put Archie Sonic at about planet to star level in terms of his raw AP and DC, whereas his speed would be infinite. I wouldn't put his AP at multiversal, because it isn't consistent that he can warp things on that scale. He did it once in a pocket zone, which was stated to be able to bend the rules of time and space, and he failed to do it again with help. So even if we grant it to him, there's no guarantee that scales to his AP. It could just be a reality warping capabilities. Akin to, for my JoJo fans, Dio over Heaven, who can warp reality, but only under special circumstances, and his space stats are still building level, like Part 3 Dio. Another argument people are bound to make is that during the Image crossover, the Master Emerald was stated to be able to destroy infinite realities. After an event called the Great Harmony, thousands of emeralds were merged into the main 7. So the argument would say that using them gives more power, since the Master Emerald was 14 emeralds when it was stated to be able to destroy those realities. However, I would counter by saying that the Master Emerald was considered the strongest even after the Great Harmony. Knuckles mentions this when he wants to use them to nullify the Super Genesis wave, and guides also still state that it's the most powerful. And even if it was stronger, super forms only take a certain amount of energy to be achieved, not all the energy within an emerald, which is how Sonic could transform with just the energy from the Death Egg, while not even touching the emeralds. People scaling him to Energex and Mogul don't understand the context, as I've already explained. At the end of the day, Archie Sonic is powerful, but not nearly as much as people claim, and that's the truth. I will end this by saying that the last thing people try to do is scale Sonic to Game Sonic, but it's confirmed by one of the main writers, Ian Flynn, that Sega Sonic is different from Archie. And considering he read every Archie comic when he wrote the Encyclopedia, which I used in this video, and that he's being tasked with writing the 30th anniversary encyclopedia for Sonic as a whole, I think his word holds a fair bit of weight. I believe an argument for multiversal Sonic is possible, but I haven't seen a very good one because it's all out of context feats. Comment down below and tell me your thoughts and how you feel about the revelations I provided. Check the description box for a key that explains what the abbreviations translate to in terms of which Sonic series each feat is from. Give the video a like because a lot of work went into it, and share it around to educate people on Sonic scaling. Be sure to subscribe because I am talking about the Death Battle next, and in terms of what I have to say about it, I'm going to be talking about it, an attempted debunk of it, and a debunk of that debunk. So it should be fun to say the least. Be sure to check it out. And also be sure to follow me on Twitter. I'm going to work on getting the channel Twitter back up, and also join us in Discord. It's usually pretty dead, but I want to make it more active. And of course, you should follow us on Instagram for updates, as I usually talk about the editing process there. I'll catch you guys later.